In 1946, Texarkana learned that darkness could have footsteps, a mask, and no name anyone could prove. The attacks crossed county lines, state lines, and the thin line between local fear and national obsession. The first known attack did not begin with screams, but with headlights dying on a quiet road. Mary Jean Larey later remembered a feeling before the violence, as if the woods had started watching. The face they described was not a face at all, only cloth, cut holes, and a voice. Mary survived, but the details she carried back sounded almost impossible, even to experienced officers. Presley wrote down the mask, the height, the weapon, and the question nobody could answer. Jimmy Hollis lived, but survival did not make his story easier for the town to accept. At first it sounded like a terrible assault, not the opening chapter of something larger. The road kept no confession, only impressions in mud, and memories that shifted under pressure. Only later would investigators look back and see that the first warning had already been drawn. Before newspapers called him the Phantom, someone was already moving through Texarkana without leaving a name. Weeks later, another parked car waited at dawn, and this time, there were no survivors inside. Richard Griffin had no reason to believe a quiet evening could become part of a national nightmare. Holly Ann Moore was 17, young enough that every detail of her final night feels unbearable. The scene offered fragments, but no face, no clear motive, and no mistake obvious enough to follow. By breakfast, Texarkana was reading about death on a road many people thought they knew. The weapons spoke in marks and calibers, but in 1946, science still moved slowly. The murders did not look like robbery, and that made the silence around motive even colder. For the families, the investigation was not a mystery story. It was a door that never opened. After Griffin and Moore, patrol cars moved through Texarkana like lanterns searching for a shadow. Fear changed ordinary habits first. Doors locked earlier, lights stayed on, and every road became suspect. Betty Jo Booker left music behind that night, never knowing silence was waiting beyond the streetlights. Paul Martin was supposed to take Betty home, a small favor that became part of the timeline. When morning came, 2 teenagers were missing, and the town's fear found a new shape. Paul was found first, far from safety, leaving investigators to search for Betty with growing dread. Searchers moved through the woods carefully, because by then, hope had begun sounding like denial. Betty Jo's saxophone case became more than evidence. It became the image Texarkana could not forget. 3 attacks now pointed towards something deliberate, but the pattern still refused to explain itself. The name Phantom gave the city a word for what it already feared after sundown. Stores sold protection faster than answers, because fear is easiest to carry when it fits in your hand. Gonzalez promised pressure, patrols, and pursuit, but the Phantom had already learned a value of distance. Mary's description mattered, but trauma rarely arrives clean, complete, or easy for strangers to measure. The mask was simple, almost crude, but it turned one man into every shadow in town. Every strange neighbor, every drifter, every bitter rumor suddenly looked like a possible answer. Roadblocks caught frightened citizens, nervous liars, and innocent men, but not the one person they needed. Rumors moved faster than patrol cars, and each false story pulled investigators farther from solid ground. Places once used for privacy became warning signs, spoken about carefully and avoided after dark. In Texarkana, unanswered phone calls became small rehearsals for grief no family wanted to name. Then the pattern changed, moving from parked cars to a home where danger should not have entered. Katie Starks was doing ordinary things when the night outside stopped being background. The attacker no longer needed a deserted road. He was bold enough to stand outside a window. Virgil Starks was killed inside his own home, and Texarkana's last sense of distance disappeared. Katie ran through pain and rain, carrying the final confirmed attack into into another person's doorway. Her survival gave investigators one more witness, but not the clear answer the city needed. At the farmhouse, Presley saw a different kind of courage from the killer, or a different kind of desperation. The weapon changed, the setting changed, but investigators still wondered whether the same mind remained. After the Starks attack, even home no longer felt like a wall between life and danger. Texarkana did not simply fear a killer, it feared the hour when he seemed most possible. The evidence connected places, dates, and fear, but still stopped short of naming one living man. Katie lived, but every survivor carried a version of the crime that evidence could not fully hold. Experts spoke of planning and control, but profiles could suggest a mind, not handcuff one. Close up from behind the paper, Presley's eyes visible above it. Lighting, dim interrogation room bulb. Details, a chair sits empty across the table. Typed pages show crossed out claims, and Presley's exhaustion deepens with every contradiction. Suspicion settled on many faces, especially those already carrying secrets they did not want examined. Every cleared suspect narrowed the field, but also made the remaining darkness feel more intelligent. The clue that pulled investigators toward Youell Swinney did not begin with murder, but stolen cars. When Peggy Swinney came for a car, investigators believed they had found more than a thief's wife. Peggy's arrest opened a door investigators had not expected, but doors can lead into fog. Peggy began talking, but fear, loyalty, and self-preservation made every sentence difficult to trust. Her statement named Youell, but a name on paper is not the same as proof in court. Youell Swinney gave investigators a suspect with weight, but not the certainty grieving families deserved. The evidence around Swinney formed a web, but every strand still needed something stronger. If Peggy would not testify, the most explosive claim in the case could collapse before trial. Investigators could believe Swinney was guilty and still fail to build the case law required. Texarkana wanted a name, because unnamed fear keeps returning every time a porch light flickers. Swinney went to prison for other crimes, while the murders remained officially unanswered. Then the attack stopped, a silence that felt less like peace than another unanswered clue. The city breathed again, but not fully. Relief without answers can feel like borrowed time. Cases become cold one folder at a time, not because people forget, but because proof runs out. The longer he remained unnamed, the more the Phantom became both suspect and legend. Behind every nickname and headline were young lives, ordinary families, and futures cut short without explanation. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore were not clues first. They were people before the case consumed them. Paul Martin's absence was not solved by theories. It stayed at a family table. Katie survived the Phantom, but survival can become its own room, locked from the inside. The law needs more than suspicion, even when suspicion feels painfully close to truth. For many investigators, Swinney remained the strongest theory, but theory is where certainty stopped. Peggy's fear may have hidden truth, distorted truth, or protected her from a truth too dangerous. Years passed over the files, but age did not soften the questions written inside them. Hollywood later borrowed the fear, but the real wounds belong to families, not moviegoers. Modern eyes can revisit old evidence, but time removes witnesses faster than technology can replace them. The timeline is clear enough to disturb, but not complete enough to convict the dead or living. The Swinney theory explains much, but the parts it cannot prove are exactly the parts history remembers. Another theory imagines a local man, someone familiar with roads and invisible because he seemed ordinary. Some believe the killer left Texarkana, taking his name with him before the city could catch up. Legends simplify what evidence complicates, and the Phantom grew easier to fear than to understand. Evidence can preserve a question for decades, but it cannot always force the past to answer. The attacks were scattered across roads and borders, but fear connected them into one dark map. The Starks farmhouse became the final confirmed attack. But final does not mean fully understood. Summer came, people returned outside, but nobody could prove the danger had truly left. No murder trial gave the victims a final public accounting of what investigators believed happened. 5 people died, 3 survived, and 1 unidentified attacker remained beyond the reach of law. The mask may be the clearest image in the case, and that is exactly why it haunts. Mary's memory gave the phantom shape, but even shape could not become an arrest. Jimmy survived the first attack, then lived with a question Texarkana never solved. Some crimes become part of a place, not because they repeat, but because they remain unfinished. Arrived to separate fact from suspicion, or suspicion from legend. For Presley, the case was not a legend. It was work that never reached peace. Even famous investigators can leave a town without carrying away the thing it fears most. Cold cases are not dead files. They are conversations interrupted by time. The cruelest part of the Texarkana case is not lack of theories, but lack of certainty. The case still matters because unsolved violence leaves families grieving inside a story others keep retelling. The most responsible answer is not a clean ending, but a ranking of possibilities. Swinney remains the strongest suspect for many, but history cannot convict on belief alone. If the Phantom was someone else, then he succeeded at the one thing murderers most desire: disappearance. The farmhouse attack may show escalation, panic, confidence, or a different offender entirely. When the official trail ended, the silence did not feel empty. It felt occupied. Without a verdict, grief had nowhere official to rest, so it stayed with the living. Today, Texarkana moves forward, but some roads still carry the weight of 1946. We return to the case because the missing answer feels almost visible, just beyond the evidence. The Phantom's power was not only what he did, but what nobody could finally prove. The story began with survivors looking back, trying to describe someone who should have been impossible. Every investigation ends somewhere, but the hardest ones end before the truth does. Newspapers gave the Phantom a public shape, but they could not give the families closure. Respecting this case means admitting what is known, what is likely, and what remains unknown. Was Swinney the Phantom, or did the real killer vanish while the town looked elsewhere? Every evening in Texarkana eventually became ordinary again, but ordinary never meant untouched. A porch light can mean safety, unless history has already taught you how quickly glass breaks. No confirmed mask was left for history, only the image survivors carried out of darkness. The case is closed in boxes, but not in the minds of those who still look back. In Texarkana, the Phantom did not only escape arrest, he escaped certainty itself.